So today I'm going to be talking about Carrie 1976. It was the first successful movie to have a majority of female cast, and I found that it deviated away from the traditional role of a male villain, but also still had the conventions of a typical horror. What I found was that the movie had both blood and supernatural rather than just one. Um, the opening scene was Carrie's equilibrium, and it started off as a bird's eye view of a normal day, and then tilting and panning down towards her and into her PE lesson. She drops the ball, which her classmates shout at her for, but it's like something that she's prone to, so it didn't really. I don't think it affected her. Um, the next scene was a complete opposite of the events that she just encountered. The camera acts as a voyeur and pans across the girls' changing room with romantic music played over the top. As the camera pans, the audience can see the girls are getting dressed and getting out of the shower. We then move on to see Carrie, who's in the shower washing herself. The shots last about 4 seconds and they dissolve into each other, so they have quite a soft dissolving. Um, the scene intrudes into Carrie's personal pleasurable time, which agrees with the male gaze. And learning about Todorov's theory, we can apply it here. Carrie is realizing that she's bleeding, not knowing that it's her period. This is the disruption stage. The main themes that surround Carrie is religion, death, and supernatural mystery. When Carrie enters her house, we can see a lot of holy pictures, crosses, and notice technology, which kind of reminds me of like Amish people. Um, you can tell that Carrie is really religiously oppressed. Margaret, the mother, is overly protective and a religious woman who shelters Carrie from the outside world, which is full of sin. The shower scene then relates back to religion. Carrie is seen to be doing a pure, clean thing as she's like washing her sins away, kind of. But then the sin comes, which is her period, and Carrie's period to her seems unnatural and unclean, which links to the prom scene where pig's blood is dropped on her. In Islam and some Christian faiths, the pig is an unclean animal and is and her menstrual cycle is both portrayed as the sin and unclean. It should be noted that religion plays a prominent role in this story. It in all incarnations of it. Carrie's mom is what one might easily term as religious zealot or possibly a fanatic. She insists that Carrie wears no makeup and dresses very moderately, which have the conventions of respecting her body. Another example is when Carrie kills her mother. The weapons enter the same place where Jesus was crucified, which I thought was highly controversial and why the film was rated A15. There are three types of evil identified in the movie. The first being the bullies in Carrie's life, like her classmates such as Chris and Norma. And they don't physically abuse her but cause her like psychological damage. The next evil I thought was Carrie's mother, as she oppresses Carrie and neglects her from the modern world, and she didn't educate her about her period and doesn't allow her to take part in any extracurricular activity. So this like decreases her chance from having any friends. The last evil is Carrie. Although she finally stands up to the bullies and her mother, she goes on like a crazy massacre, but then decides to save Sue in the 1976 version. And also in the 2012 version, she saves the teacher, which I thought was really good. So I do apply some sympathy for her, but then again, she doesn't like try to correct the wrongs. She can't like correct the wrongs that she's made. This then links to the female heroine, but it can also be manipulated as Carrie saves herself from a life of the unknown and her mother's dominance. But then but as Sue tries to help her, she doesn't receive the help. Some other contrast in the 2012 version is Sue isn't like shown to be pure and innocent. In one scene, she's having like sex in the back of a car, which rectifies this. In the older version, like Sue, we know that Sue has a boyfriend but doesn't do anything like sinly. Um, this also like relates to other movies such as Halloween, where teens are killed from having like sex and taking drugs and alcohol, but leave the pure and innocent behind. But in this case, it's like the opposite. Carrie 1976 made a whole new meaning for the villain, as before it was usually male and all the women in the movie were portrayed as villains, and created a whole new era for female villains, which is why I think there are now in much more female villains in the horror genre.